Okay, hello everyone. It is RPG with DBJ. To maybe it is live. Okay, this is RPG with DBJ. Today is Wednesday, World Building Wednesday, and as in the notes, you will see that we are going to do Starship creation using a very elaborate and quite robust Starship creation system created by a fellow co-host, Vincent. He has a special setting known as Astrositas. I've pronounced it. If you've been seen me on this channel, I've pronounced it like 30 different ways. I love them all. There's something, yeah, there's something. I can't explain it like robust. I just imagine these starships with encrusted, like ancient, that's been around for generations, and yet there's something living and new underneath. It just takes wiping away the cobwebs. But maybe I'm going a little too fast into what we're going to do. So for one thing, Vincent is in the chat. Chat. He is co-hosting with me, but what you will see is us using his system to create spaceships, starships, in which you, the player characters, are going to be members of essentially the crew, people, Omega drones, people awakened into a strange world who have forgotten who they are, where they've come from, even where the spaceship has come from. And the main goal is exploration, to find out like what your origins are, the origins of the spaceship you are on, and travel from habitat to habitat, world to world, even galaxy to galaxy. So I will also allow him to correct me and or to give further details into what we're going to do. And we're going to try to create a starship on the fly. So in order for us to do that, we will be sharing with you guys our document so that you can see what we're doing as we do it. So let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to click this. Yeah, and there we are.
Okay.
All right.
Hello. Thank you. I think I have nothing to correct so far, so good job. For the purpose of this video, I will assume you guys know how the Cypher system works, because if I have to explain this, we can basically go home already. So the spaceship is built like a character in Cypher system. So the big things you have to decide is the ship class, which is the descriptor for a character, the ship frame, which is the role for a character, and the core room, which is the focus of a character. And it's basically up to the players to decide in which order they want to do that. Did you build a couple of characters already, DBJ, or in Cypher system?
I've previously created characters in the Cypher system, not very recently, but I find the Cypher system's pretty intuitive. It's, I mean, the term adjective, noun, that verbs, while is very common. That's how the Cypher system kind of works for the character building concept. I understand that this building a starship it's a modification of that. It's not quite that, adjective, noun, that verbs, but it still runs in that same pattern, which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that most of the role players, if they've heard of the Cypher system or what it's about, would understand exactly what that means.
Okay. Do you have any preference? What do you want to start with which part of character creation? Or yeah.
Okay. Let's start with sorry. I also have the main document, so I'm referring to it as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there are three functions essentially of the spaceship,
Yeah,
and that's the structural control, the tactical control, and the engine control sections.
yeah.
And just like a Cypher System, Cypher System really only has three statistics to measure a player character's ability. I think it's
Might, speed, and intellect.
might, speed, and intellect. And of course, might is like your physical prowess. I mean, referring to the player characters, might's your physical prowess, your strength, your endurance, yeah, weapons, your attacks. Speed, of course, is very representative of dexterity, how adroit you are, fast balance, that kind of thing. And then, of course, intellect for a player character is your intelligence, how you figure things out, notice things, a little bit of like willpower and such. But for a starship, we have structure, or your structural control represents the physical capabilities of the ship, how tough it is, how much damage it can suffer. The engine control is the maneuverability of the ship, the energy of reserves, and the tactical control of the ship are like all the sensors, the um, computer systems, and some of the relays in the ship in terms of finding out things that are happening on the outside or internally in the ship.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's how it works. Also, tactical station is for using a lot of special abilities, and also the ship ciphers, which I call enigmas.
I like that.
Okay. Which part of the ship creation do you want to start with? We have the ship class, which is the adjective. We have the ship frame, which is the noun, or we have the ship verb, which is the core.
Let's start with the structure of the ship, the
frame.
noun, the frame, the actual, like, what, I guess, class of ship this is going to be.
Exactly. I've got 3 different types of ship frames so far,
Okay.
which are called destroyer, corvette, and carrier. If you know the Cypher System, you should already know what they are roughly be. The destroyer is basically a fighter class. The corvette is something like an explorer, and the carrier is something like a caster.
Okay.
So the destroyer is basically a big bulky ship which has a lot of weapon slots, and also is the only ship frame which is able to use heavy ship weapons from the get-go. Heavy ship weapons are basically the strongest weapons, which are almost that big that you have to build the frame around the weapon. So it's something really strong and awesome. They are basically for those players who want to cover the base of fighting completely, because they can choose for their ship class and their ship core something else, or they want to hyper focus on combat.
Okay.
So basically, if you got a destroyer, you don't have to care for combat anymore. That's basically the thing with the destroyer.
Right.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, like, so as just as a comparison, so in the player characters, you can play a glaive, which is like you said, it's the fighter, it's the one who's skilled in combat, and because of the way the Cypher System is designed, it is generalized within its scope, right? So if you're a player character in a glaive, you're ready for combat, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're automatically like a big burly person. You might be fast, or you might just be extremely versatile with weapons, or very accurate and things like that. It's quite customizable for player characters. So I'm already of the mindset that if we pick, say, a destroyer class for the ship, that the type of weaponry it will have will be just as varied as well. I know I'm being very vague here, but
Yeah,
that's how the Cypher system is kind of designed, you know?
the thing is that you have basically a whole category which only Destroyer can use, which is the heavy ship weapons. There are only a few ship cores which give you access to heavy ship weapons as well, but they are usually fixed and you can't change them or use the default ones. And they can be quite strong. They usually have some have a lot of more damage than normal ship weapons, and they usually have a bunch of strong side abilities. But they have the disadvantage that if you fire a heavy ship weapon, you can't fire any other ship weapon as well.
Okay.
So it's basically like the sci-fi equivalent of using something two-handed.
Yeah. which is excellent, because I love the fact that how you've there are standard rules, but by reimagining the exact same rules in this concept of creating these starships, it's like, unless you explained it, you wouldn't recognize it, but it actually absolutely makes sense and fits, if that makes sense. Saying, right?
Yeah.
Like you're saying, well, okay, there as a player character, you have like two-handed weapons, which prevents you from doing other things. But when you extrapolate it out to, like, starship creation, it makes a lot of sense. I know I focused on the destroyer, but I think I'm more of a Corvette styled individual if I had to design a ship, and it's my opinion over everybody else playing in the game, because of course what would happen is we would be doing this together.
Yeah.
Right? It would be us like, hey, let's all create this ship together, because all of us player characters, me being 3 to 5 other individuals, representing 3 to 5 other individuals. So I'm going to pick a Corvette.
Okay. The Corvette has a lot of abilities which are focused on exploration. So you have stuff like using escape pods, creating transportation vehicles, fighters you can use, and stuff like that. And they have also some combat abilities and some special abilities, but they are usually the best well-rounded one. And it's also, as far as I played the game so far, the most the ship frame which almost everyone initially sticks to.
Really?
I think I only had one destroyer and one carrier so far. Everything else was Corvette.
And it would seem like that by picking the frame of the ship kind of would guide you as the game master as to the style of theme that they're interested in. I mean, if they're going to pick a destroyer class ship, they probably want this to be a lot of combat, a lot of conflict that they're going to get into, as opposed to exploring and uncovering mysteries and things of that nature.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And that's the big advantage if you have a group character like that. You can basically see what the players are into, what they want to, which aspect they want to focus on, or maybe they don't want to focus on something and just pick a very rounded ship, which can combat but do a bit of exploration too, etc.
I try not to make comparisons to other role-playing games, because I feel like they should stand on their own. But I do have to make a comparison here to another excellent role-playing game, which is Blades in the Dark.
Yeah.
And for those of you out there who are unfamiliar with Blades in the Dark, I'm sure you've probably heard this before. Blades in the Dark has a mechanic where all of the players create a gang. It Blades in the Dark, it's like a dark pseudo-Victorian world in which you are criminals in the underworld, and everyone makes their own player character, and then collectively you make up a gang, and that gang has individuals and it has certain focuses, whether you're thieves or assassins or do intimidation tactics or sell stolen goods or smuggle information, or smuggle objects or collect information, spying or something. And then the type of gang you create kind of focuses what type of adventures you'd like to be part of. I say that now because in this Starship creation, the type of ship you create collectively as player characters kind of guides the kind of adventures you want to engage in, right? It's like while making the ship, you're actually starting to make the theme essentially. So by making the ship, if you let's say the player characters start out with a destroyer class, that right there is going to say, okay, the players woke up. They're these Omega drones that don't understand what's going on, but maybe there was this eternal war that they've been part of, and they're going to explore the universe and right wrongs or take out enemies or have to discover past conflicts and getting pulled into past conflicts maybe they don't even remember being part of. And there would be a lot of conflict as opposed to, say, more of a Star Trek feel where they're uncovering, hidden civilizations and making contact with alien species that they may not be able to communicate with, and going through wormholes and finding resources on a bit, airless asteroids or something like that, which may have less to do with battle and more to do with uncovering mysteries and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Diplomacy.
exactly. And you can define that further with your ship class and your ship core, because you can go more into detail, and you can also choose more special abilities, and you can see different things you can do with those special abilities aside from the just core abilities of a normal ship frame, because it's basically the broadest stroke you make when building a spaceship. When building a spaceship, I have already copied in the basic stats of a corvette, which is structure, engine, and tactics. All have a pool of 20 points. And you can still distribute 6 points freely among these pools, and you can choose one buffer, which is basically the same as edge for characters. So it reduces the cost of all abilities you use with that specific stat.
Yeah. And so in your system, you have a buffer, which as a player character, you have an edge. And that's basically, for those who don't know, an edge is like you have a specialization, or you are able to do something far easier than another PC, or far easier than someone else in this world. It's like a you could call it a specialization of sorts for a player character.
It's basically like you're trained that much in this field that it doesn't tax you not as much anymore to use the abilities of that specific field.
Right.
That's why I called them buffer, because basically they buffer the points for you for the ship.
Perfect. And I also wanted to talk over it so you had a chance to cut and paste as well, so you could see, so the people who are watching can see what's going on. And if they're familiar with the Cypher system, I'm sure they're like, oh, they're looking at it like, I see how that's like a player character. Even though
I can go quickly over all the stats if you want.
Please.
Sure. The level. Because the ship is an object, it has to have a level in Cypher System, and it starts with 3, and each tier it goes up. The level increases by 1, so it ends up with level 8. I also thought about making the level a bit higher or lower, but that's up to the players to decide, or the GM to decide. It doesn't make that huge of a difference usually, but it's just for narrative purposes. So if you have for example, a level 4 enemy, how easy could he maybe break through the doors, or try to manipulate the ship or stuff like that. So you have basically a reference point to use. Then overcharge is the same as effort. Effort is basically that you use up points from your pools to make stuff easier for you, so it reduces the difficulty. Enigma chambers. Enigmas, as I told, are ship ciphers. They are all roughly as big and as heavy as a human is. So they have to store it in a specific chamber, in a specific room inside the ship, and from there you can use them. That's basically like the torpedo room for a submarine or something, and there you can store them, and if you store them in the Enigma chamber, you can use them at any time. The slots are basically just free space. Slots you can use to store stuff or to build into rooms. A slot is roughly 6 square feet. No, 20 square feet big. So as a rough estimate.
So, oh, sorry.
Yeah, sure. Just answer away.
So to just make a comparison, it's essentially the slots would be for a player character. It's like how many objects you can carry, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, in Cypher System, a cipher is the extremely generalized descriptor for finding strange technology in the world. For those who are unfamiliar with a Numenera is a world that's like nine.
Yeah, the ninth world. The ninth world.
And there's like different civilizations, and people can come across objects which are could be a blending of technology and magic, or at least as perceived by the player characters. So in the Starship creation, the players may uncover something in their exploration, and they may not know what it does, or they may want to store it away to analyze later. And then so now they have a place to put it, basically in the cargo hold or something like that. And for use later too, to modify the ship for various purposes. So I like that.
Yeah. The enigmas and ciphers are basically just one-use items. You can use them one time and then they are gone, basically. So the other stats are basically armaments is how many slots for turrets and ship weapons you have, so how many you can install into your ship. Armor is basically just reduction of damage you take. Utility systems are basically like skills for ships. So you could choose two simple system or advanced system. A simple system reduces the difficulty of the specific task by 1 step, and the advanced system by 2 steps, like with character skills. You have trained and specialized. That's the same thing. And the Corvette also has one flex system, which can be changed every day. So you can basically rebuild it as whatever you want, but it can only be a simple system. It can never be a specialized system, advanced system. And the last thing is provisions, which is basically what is stored initially inside the ship. So you have uniforms, you have rations with 100, which it sounds much, but if you think about a group with 5 players, it may last you like maybe 20 days, and then you have to look for something new. Then you have 3 turrets, 2 ship weapons, 3 enigmas, and 5 trading goods. A trading good is basically the currency for ship scale stuff. So it's a conglomeration of different stuff you can trade. So a bit of food, maybe a bit of building material, a bit of medication, stuff like that. And there's also a bit of a better trading good, which is called luxury goods, which are basically stuff you don't really need but maybe want. So maybe sweets or something to smoke or whatever. There are different possibilities for that. Yeah, you can choose the ship weapons and the turrets later. So that's something we can still do. And you can also choose a special ability for your ship, which are several you can take at tier 1. You can also copy them in. I have a feeling we won't make it this time.
I hear you. And just to let other people know, like in the setting of Astrositas, in a setting that not only is the ship going to be created with the player characters, where everyone gets together and kind of designs it and decides what kind of ship it is. The background of the setting is that the players awake without any memory, and the ship itself has a bit of a mystery to it as well, meaning that there are the origin of the ship and maybe even internal spaces in the ship are unknown to even the player characters.
Yeah.
The full capabilities of the ship may not be known, where it comes from, how fast it can go, how durable it is or something. And in many ways that's reflected by essentially character growth, right? It's you could very easily explain the ship gaining using experience or finding ciphers and attaching them to the ship. It could also be explained as discovering a new room or a hidden computer program, or rewiring the systems for the engines or something, which happens all the time in like Star Trek or whatever. They reroute power to some pseudoscience or whatever, and it allows the ship to do something it's never done before.
Yeah, that's basically represented by the fact that the ship can go up tiers, and each tier the ship gains new slots and module slots when they go up. And these are represented basically are usually rooms you either didn't know were there or were infested in some way and weren't usable up to that point. So that's basically the explanation why the ship goes up tiers. We have a lot of abilities you could choose from. At tier 1, you can choose 2 of them. And later you can maybe choose more of them too. I'm not sure, should we go through all of them? Or should we choose some other things first and maybe do this at the end?
We don't have to go through all of them. Because we still want to create the other portions of the ship. Although we can always revisit it if you want to. But
it's basically the abilities you can choose for your ship. So you have scanners, you have rescue packages, you have pre-igniter for your weapons, an afterburner to speed up your ship, a nanofabricator which can create items for you and stuff like that. You can choose all that.
I can see people wanting to pick that nanofabricator.
Yeah, it's I made it that way that you can basically choose from a specific item category whatever you want, but you have to roll each time to see if the material the nanofabricator uses is used up. And if it's used up, you have to invest trading goods to refill it again.
Oh, that's sweet. Cool.
That's how it works. In my campaign, the first player who used this thing rolled a 1 for it, and when you roll a 1, it's used up. So he basically got 1 item out of it.
They're like, you should have checked to see if it was full first. I didn't know.
So the next part you want to choose then, ship class or ship core?
Ship class.
Ship class. The ship classes, there are quite a few of them.
Okay.
They start at page 35 in the document I sent you.
Yes.
Open up. The ship classes, I named them after famous myth. So gods and special weapons and things like that. And they basically try to represent a specific archetype of ship. And so they are a bit more flexible than just saying it's maybe a rusty ship or a fast ship. So they can have a wider variety of abilities. The ship classes give passive bonuses to the ship. So it increases the pools usually and gives some systems and some special abilities, and also a ship module. A module is like an artifact for characters. So it's a special room which has passive and active abilities, which I already explained in another video. And that's basically how these things work. I will go quickly through all of them, just explaining shortly what the ship roughly gives bonuses for. and then you can choose one. Maybe you should take notes what you are interested in.
Right.
There are 15, so it could take a couple of minutes. So the first one is the Hermes class. Hermes?
Yeah.
I still can't pronounce this thing.
A lazy stateside is pronunciation is Hermes.
Yeah, Hermes. Okay. Hermes is, as you may know, the god of travel, merchant, and thieves in Old Greek, and he gives the ship more engine points. It increases the travel engine of the ship, so you can travel long distances faster. It has more slots, so you can store more stuff. And it has the Staff of Hermes, which passively gives bonuses to healing and actively can put enemies to sleep. The flaw the ship has is that half of all the slots have to be used for storage because they are fixed for that. They can't be used for anything else, which usually is not much of a downside because you have to store a lot of things. For example, trading goods and reserve, which you need to repair your ship.
I like how in the various classes, like they are, because they are named after like divine or mythological entities, that they also have a. It's like I don't want to say have a piece of them. It's almost as if they are. The descriptor gives you an image of them, and it's based on the mythology it's associated with, like Hermes and Athena, the Loki, the Mjolnir, Gilgamesh. You know, it's like you're like, oh, okay, and I remember those stories. And for example, like the Hermes isn't just fast, but it also has this, you know, the staff of Hermes, which was a healing artifact in mythology. It wasn't related to it wasn't related to just Hermes having wings on his feet.
It's the classic staff with the two snakes around them.
Yep. And Hermes is the god of messengers, so there's going to be he's going to carry things, missives back and forth, and so therefore in translation to creating a starship, it's like, oh well, I have to have space to carry things.
Exactly.
Makes
sense. That's how I worked out. Basically, when I made these, I looked up the myth of every one of them and looked up what special traits or special achievements they had and tried to translate that into mechanics.
I can imagine someone, players looking and they see the Loki and having no knowledge of what it is, just going, just because of popular culture and Loki being in movies and stuff, Tom Hiddleston, I'm thinking they're like, oh, Loki, that sounds like the trickster. And it
basically is, yeah.
So
the Loki class is basically you can change the appearance of your ship and you can change the appearance of everyone inside the ship. So you have basically a system which allows the crew to disguise themselves pretty good. And also it has a special, its module is basically like a backstab. So if you can sneak up on someone, you can use this module to disable their ship completely.
wow.
But it only works if you if they have no knowledge of you being there, or if they have lowered their defenses, if they are not in combat mode, basically.
Well, yeah, it's like using like stealth technology, or the it's the classic Star Trek, the Klingons always sneak up on them and with their cloaking devices on, and then they're striking them through their shields or what have you, and that makes perfect sense. I can imagine that's a popular one. It may not be.
It didn't. I think no one has chosen it yet.
Really?
No.
Really?
But there are a lot of good choices though. The next one on my list would be Athena. Athena is the goddess of wisdom and war, and she has increased the tactical pool. Obvious choice. It gives databases, which are basically like libraries for the ship. And it has increases the scanners, so you can scan on longer range stuff, which you normally need to get closer to. The module is intelligent probe, and which I call the owl probe, which basically flies around the ship and looks at stuff, and it does this passively all the time. It can also transport stuff, which is roughly as big as itself, so roughly as big as a car. And it can, as an active component, you can either reproduce it should it be destroyed, or you can command it to do a specific thing, but you need to make an interaction roll with the probe to basically remind it what it has to do. You can't control it directly.
Okay. So basically, you have to issue it orders, and it performs those instructions, as opposed to it being remotely operated.
Yeah, exactly. But it usually is on the side of the player characters, but it could be that it's just too curious to go near something dangerous or something. That could happen. So basically the ship is for those guys who like to focus on their scanners, basically, if they want to know what's happening before it happens.
Yeah, the Athena seems to be pretty good at a number of things. I don't want to say like a jack of all trades, but in many ways the Athena reminds me of that. Like, it's got sensors, it's got a library, it's
focused on a tactical station, so yeah, it doesn't have any increased combat abilities or movement abilities, so yeah.
Awesome. Now I can see players wanting to pick the Loki. For me, my mind goes towards like the Cerberus, maybe.
Yes, we can go to Cerberus. Cerberus is a strongly combat-focused core, which Cerberus, for those who don't know, is the three-headed hellhound, which guards hell in the Greek myth. And it increases the structure pool. It has multi-headed, which basically increases the damage of all weapons by 1 from the ship. And all repair rolls are easier, and the module of the ship are basically hellfire. So you can have gas vents all around the ship, and you can basically burn everything in ship range, so in close range of you.
Oh, that's sweet.
That's Cerberus. It has as a passive ability that you can heat up the hull. So if anything maybe locks onto the hull of the ship, you can burn it away.
Oh, sweet. That's not too bad. I'm going to go with the Athena.
Okay.
I think that offers more options and information from a further distance. And like the idea of the owl drone of sorts, the thing that flows around the ship.
Yeah, I'm copying in the abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, not sure why they're okay. The box is as big as it is. So you get 4 more points in your tactical pool. I just fill it in just to see you guys how you would do that. So 4 more points in your tactical pool. You still have to distribute the 6 point, but you can do that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got a simple system, so you could choose a database based on technology ships, life form, or singularities. And you can later upgrade it. And you also have better long-range scanners and the owl probe. As a disadvantage, you have that you constantly emit signals because the scanners are as good, so hiding with the ship is harder.
Cool. Now, I pretty much know the answer to this, but do each of them have some sort of limitation?
Not everyone.
Okay.
I got some which don't have as prevalent advantages, so they don't have disadvantages. So, for example, the Odysseus class has no bonus to any pool, has only a couple of skills, and has a module which is very specialized for specific tasks, so he doesn't have a disadvantage. But on the other hand, I have alien ship classes, which have lots of advantages, but also a lot of disadvantages because they're not made for humans.
Okay, sweet.
So we have an Athena class corvette so far.
Cool.
And the last one is the ship core. The ship core represents starts at page 47.
Okay.
And if you want, you can roll the origin of your ship first, of your ship core first. The core is basically the thing the ship is built for. So it's the main focus of the ship.
Let's pick something random.
Okay. 1d20 then.
All right. Let's see. Let's hear the die roll here. 14.
14. 14 is an aquarium holding extremely intelligent aquatic creatures.
That's hilarious. I've
Usually had it with fish, but then I decided aquatic creatures is more general.
Yeah, it could be anything. Although I think the idea of like very intelligent goldfish would be awesome.
You could make it whatever you want. That's something you would have to decide together with your GM. So you could maybe say maybe they are octopi, or maybe you got simply goldfish. Why not? That's how the core looks in the game. It has no mechanical point to it, but it's just to know what it's made of. So maybe the core is controlled by these fish, by these aquatic creatures, or maybe they are the core. So maybe their abilities are what the core represents, what the core manifests. So maybe they are psychic or whatever.
That's sweet. They could have like you could describe it as them having maybe giving off like an electrical or energy type of discharge, like eels or something that somehow like modifies or powers the ship or something, or instead of like adjusting the engines, you kind of have to beseech them a little bit to get them to do something, and which then affects the ship itself.
Yeah.
That
would be a possibility. You could also make them that they are shifting, and maybe they fly out of their aquarium to do stuff. There are lots of possibilities.
That's awesome.
So, now you have to choose the core, which is basically the hardest choice in the character creation process, because I already made a couple of these, and they are pretty varied.
Okay.
I can post a list of all of them with the page number. Should I post it in the chat? No, I think I posted in our chat.
All right.
I'm not sure you can see that. Wait, oh, there. The page numbers and the names. I'm not sure we have to go through all of them, but I can describe them very shortly.
Sure.
The first one is Gross Jungles. It's basically a ship core which is focused on growing whole forests and getting advantages to that. So you can plant a seed, and this grows a jungle in a couple of days. And then you can use specific abilities on these. Maybe you can create dangerous animals or plants in it. You can use them for crafting. You can resupply yourself with it. You can even create teleportation. And I think I put it out as it got teleportation, but you can create enigmas out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate ability is the Void Forest, where you can basically create a jungle in space, which you can drag around with you, which you can use as cover, or you can install weapons in it, or do specific stuff with it, which the ship can with every forest.
It's awesome. There's so many that are like just even the titles themselves. Just comes up with things like breathes suns, reveals lost secrets, veiled by dark matter.
I tried to use no verb 2 times.
yeah. It's hard, but when you come up with the phraseology, I like that. Like sings cosmic songs or something.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, to be honest. But I'm not sure anyone will ever use it because it's super specific. It's made so that cosmic objects, so planets or nebulas or suns, basically communicate through specific specific waveforms, which you normally can't find, can't see, can't sense, and you can basically the ship can sense them and it can manipulate them. So you can basically make entire cosmic objects more dangerous or less dangerous. You can get information from them and stuff like that. They are great for exploration of dangerous places and getting a upper hand in information gathering. But you also have classics like something like Sphinx. So you have an intelligent ship which can also control the ship later. And you have something like hungers, which means the ship can consume things. And this can be used for combat and to repair the ship. Then you have Bridge of Space, which is basically, that's the transporter one, or the Stargate one, where you can teleport something, but I tried to make it not as OP as usually those abilities are, so you can't just Star Trek teleport somewhere. You always have to open up a portal at both, which is open to both sides. But you can also transport small objects through it, and the strongest ability of it is that you basically rip out entire rooms out of other ships to get into your ship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's the stuff you usually don't see in science fiction because it would be OP. But since it's a tier 6 ability and it's pretty costly, you can do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a lot of different varied ones. Funnily enough, the last one, Hertz Void Bonds, is one I just finished last week. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow, melds minds, terraforms, I get that. Trades with terrors.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. You basically trade with some Cthulhu-like creatures, so cosmic horrors. And you have to basically bring them. They make requests to you, and if you fulfill the requests, you get something in exchange from them. And you can also summon them and control them.
I don't know how much you'd thank something like a Cthulhu creature, and it gives you something and it agrees to it. Maybe that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's basically like a Cthulhu cult inside a ship. So it's usually not the best idea to do that stuff, but
that's awesome.
You can.
There's a an old B movie series called Hellraiser, and it has this classic cube that you had to figure out how to open the cube, and I could imagine like there's this giant floating cube inside the ship that has to be very much not a Rubik's cube, but essentially it's like a puzzle box that opens and reveals itself, and then it could drive people mad or something like that. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I tried to make the ship cores in a way that each one of them feels distinctly different, and also combines different abilities. So you don't have just one thing the core does, but you usually have 2 or more things combined.
Oh, sweet.
For example, the Preserves People core is basically combined freezing abilities, and you have a frozen crew inside the ship, which you can defrost basically to use as an emergency crew.
That's something else that we didn't mention, that the player characters are Omega drones, essentially like awakened. I don't want to say formulate, but like they are the awakened and independent crew members of the ship. But these spacecraft may also have other members or crew that are less intelligent in their function, and that the ship may also have these individuals inside.
Yeah. the preserves people. I also thought about just calling it freezes people. Maybe that's a bit more focused. Not sure. And that one basically gives you stronger crewmen over the time. And the tier 6 abilities, basically you get the former captain as a crew member, and he's super strong. He's a level 10 NPC.
That's awesome. Wow. He's like, I've been everywhere.
Yeah, basically. I made very specific abilities he can do. He can't go out of the ship too far and stuff like that. I had to put him some limitations, but yeah, he's level 10.
Wow.
Basically the strongest you can be in Cypher System.
So let's go with weaves the fabric of time.
Weaves the fabric of time. Weaves the fabric of time is a core which is not, as you think, a time travel core. It's a core which is basically able to calculate the probabilities of something happening.
Okay.
So basically like a prediction machine. So you can basically see into the future and predict stuff that happens. So it has abilities like being able to predict where an enemy is most vulnerable, and you can basically one-shot it with it. You can see up to 10 minutes, up to a couple of hours into the future, and see consequences. For example, if I go near this space station, what would happen? And then you see basically from the space station that a swarm of aliens try to attack you from there. Near the ship, but you don't know why they do that. Maybe they want to attack, maybe they want to greet you. You're not sure, but you get these specific pictures you can then use to interpret. And you what else did it have? Yeah, that's a lot of these abilities, and the last one is basically chaos control, where you use the butterfly effect to destroy something very huge, but it needs a couple of days to wound up, basically. So you just shoot at something random, and it creates a butterfly effect to create something huge later.
That's awesome. Very, very much reminds me of a old sci-fi thing is a movie, which would be a Minority Report. You have these, it's you get a prediction, but you don't have any context for what happened before or after.
So that's exactly how it works.
Yeah, I can imagine that being, whether it's as simple as a computer program that just basically takes in a ton of information, or it could be a psychic brain or something, or maybe an alien intelligence on the spacecraft that thinks it doesn't think linearly time-wise.
Maybe a group of intelligent aquatic creatures?
Yep, exactly. And it doesn't understand our linear idea of time. It just says, here's some images. And and you're like, I don't know whether that's in the future, but why? Of course, they're like, we don't know. You didn't, you don't know how to communicate with us, effectively. It's just more like it's like the movie Arrival, where they think in such a different time frame that essentially all they can do is just splatter you with an image, and you have to kind of decipher through it, like what the context is and how you are part of it. So yeah, I love it.
So what you made so far, which is basically you have made 90% of the work already,
okay,
is choosing the 3 parts. So you have an Athena class corvette, which weaves the fabrics of time. And that's basically a ship which is very mobile, which is very good of exploration, which has great sensors, which has the ability to predict the future and also calculate stuff. So it's very well-rounded for a specific purpose, but it's also very focused on specifically getting information. That's what the ship is really good about.
That's awesome.
As a last step, we may use the ship generator to see a specific parts of the ship, with just fluff stuff you can roll up by creating the ship. I think I will roll one time and then I copy it inside.
Perfect.
So last page.
So what have we discovered?
Your ship is, okay, you got corvette, so we can ignore destroyer or carrier.
Okay.
All walls inside the ship are invisible. Which can be good, but it's also very bad for specific things.
Yes, after a particularly nasty meal, you might want to put up curtains. Yeah.
Or we already rolled, so we can basically just fix that and use what we got.
Okay.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Sorry. I got one of these things. And then you have a key, which is tell a true story to the ship that it has not yet heard.
Oh, wow.
That's how the ship improves.
Okay.
It's basically collecting stories is how you improve the ship. But at the end, the interesting part is tell a true story, so you can't just make up stuff.
And just to point out this fact that you've intended for this Starship creation to be extremely versatile, and I mean that in a storytelling kind of way.
Oh yeah.
So like you said, to improve the ship, sometimes it's not just a matter of, hey, let's collect minerals, or let's go to a factory and get, better trusses or armor. In many ways, you've picked other things. Like, this ship actually improves by telling it true stories.
Yeah, and imagine, because the core of the ship are these intelligent aquatic creatures, you have to imagine something like a giant aquarium inside the core room, and because these fish can't tell time, or can't focus themselves inside of time because they can predict the future, maybe they need to hear stories to anchor themselves in their specific time. And I just made that up based on the stuff we rolled up randomly.
Right. Because I'm looking at it like the general style of the ship is biological, with living organs and bones. The primary control station is, has smart objects that show sensors controlled by gestures and commands. I love
Minority Report again.
Yep, exactly. Using your hand motions to control things, as opposed to like tapping on the tapping on the arrays. Moving things inside the ship is easier because probes transport everything, which may be other types of those aquatic creatures, possibly.
Maybe because everything is biological. Why not?
Yeah, or even tentacles grab things and move them from place to place. Manipulating objects inside the ship works through tangible holograms. Ooh.
Because all the walls are invisible, maybe the walls are just holograms.
That's true. Let's see. Rebuilding slots works because of everything becomes super lightweight. So, like, I imagine like the micro, like, anti-gravity units or something. So if you need to lift something extremely heavy, you attach a box to it, or you put it under a platform underneath it, and it just becomes very easy to move or push. And let's see, crewmates communicate in weapon range through speaking animals and are identified by key drone, which means maybe the crew wears, like we wear, like little squids or octopi, like on the sides of our neck or something.
Yeah, why not? And these basically used as communicators.
That's awesome. And all these little details, you've created a randomizer for it, but all those little details are random that you can use to, like, add like you said, the fluff, the details in the ship, and it starts to build its own. Like, we've already started to build this story and the game hasn't even started yet. Like we don't even have the player characters yet who are on the ship. We don't have the Omega drones that they represent.
Yeah.
And it, this starship could be from a lost civilization. Maybe the ship predicted the fall of this culture, predicted their own fall, and this starship happens to be just one of a large number of them that they were hoping to maybe preserve their ancient culture or something, or even
maybe it's just a huge aquatic creature which flies through space and fled from the primal shock, and it tried to survive but didn't quite make it, and now it's lost its memories.
Yep. Now Scott Poe says in the chat, he's like, you could recreate Lex if you're crazy enough.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Those who don't know, like the Lex and that whole I guess you could call it like not B movie, but like B series. It's just a wild, crazy, oh man, it's been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah.
Roger Corman, is that the creator of the Lex series?
Not sure.
I can't remember, but it was that just was a wild, crazy, like, hey, let's do whatever the hell we want to. Sure. We've got no money. We're just going to make up stories. Okay.
Created by Paul Donovan, Lex Gigerov, Jeffrey Hirschfeld.
Yeah, I was wrong. I'm thinking of it was in that vein to me. I mean, just how I got it. Like you have this ship that just floats around and you're not really sure everything in it, and so the exploration comes in this setting is both external and internal, and I really like that.
The only thing you would still need is a name for your ship, but not sure how fast you are with that.
Okay, how about the we're going to call it the we'll make something simple. We'll call it the Black Spider.
Ooh, I like that.
Referring more to the like a Greek or Roman, like the spiders known for weaving the strands of the fates in many ways. So I'm thinking more or less like an intelligence.
The Arachnia, or how was the Weaver woman called?
I always called it Arachne.
Arachne.
Something like that.
Maybe Black Arachne, maybe as a name.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's this ship has these beings in it that are like part of weaving together the past of the galaxy, and it's trying to maybe it has something to do with like a quantum effect, meaning like the more true the information is, the more real the world becomes in a strange way.
What if the core is not aquatic creatures, but a huge terrarium full of intelligent spiders?
Okay, so in other words, what you're saying is that, hey, we can roll things randomly and pick them randomly, but
we
maybe
can also modify them if we want.
Right. Let's just make it. Let's make something that fits together, and so if we made them like a terrarium with spiders, maybe the communicators are spiders that like attach to the side of the person's face, and you can see like the I was about to say tendrils. The spider-like arms would stretch across the face, kind of thing, as when the players are in like spaceports or something like that. That just sounds awesome.
And the ship itself may look when it lands like a giant spider.
Yeah, I like that. And even the invisible walls are like web.
Nets? Yeah, web.
Like web just nets.
Almost invisible nets.
Mm-hmm. You can just see through them, and possibly even reach through them. You just push a little bit, and you can like push through the webbing into the various rooms. and such. Yeah, that just sounds awesome. That
Sounds
just
awesome.
Yeah. The control room might even have like spiders in it, and it's just the like imagine like a Black Widow spider, but instead of the widow, it's actually just a screen, and the they're you just basically hover your hands over top of the spider itself, and all the ship systems are there for you to see them and how they work. And of course, spiders are like they're alien to us, so it makes sense that we wouldn't even understand how it like we every time we think we understand it, it's looking at 8 other aspects of time and space,
Yeah.
right? You know, or even just like an octopus, maybe a spider sees things through its eyes in many facets, but human beings can only see in one direction.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, if you wanted to, you could make a floor plan of the ship, and you could just inspire the floor plan by the actual anatomy of a spider. So you could make the abdomen, you could make the head, you could make the front part, and maybe even use the legs for that.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of possibilities to build this thing. I'm not sure how much time you still got. I could show you some ships I built in Roll20.
Sure.
Don't worry if you think the words are weird. It's German.
Astrositas.
Yeah. I already that's basically the one Roll20 game I use for all of my Astrositas games, because I have all the assets in there, and yeah, it makes things much easier.
Wow. I can't imagine how much work you've done on
this Roll20 thing. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, great platform, but there's a lot of work up front, and yeah.
I once saw a campaign, the Tome of Annihilation. You can buy this as a pre-built module, basically, for Roll20, and it's just insane. They basically have every room, every page of the campaign inside this Roll20 thing. They have each map in there with each enemy as a token. And everything has lines for lighting, so you can use the dynamic lighting of Roll20 right from the get-go without doing anything. It's just insane.
Wow. So let's see.
It loads pretty long. I'm not sure why. Well, yeah, but no matter if this works or not, we made something really interesting, I think. Maybe I will even build this thing someday. Complete it, choose the abilities and stuff. But that's basically how the character creation works. We didn't do everything, so we didn't choose the specific abilities and the weapons and stuff. But that's the important part, basically. You choose these 3 aspects, you choose a name, and then you have the basic part of building a ship inside it.
And what I love about it is that the Starship creation system, because I like to think of things a little bit insidiously, is that you're also creating the game world, right? This is the Starship creation as a game master is the clues to me for what the players want to do. And as we've been going through this, little by little, we're creating story seeds. Where did this come from? Why is it like this? What are these amazing things that are in this ship that could deal with something external to it? Like, where did it come from? Why is it there? Who created the starship? Why is there an alien crew on a ship that's specifically built for a particular reason? Maybe the ship picked up something alien itself. So, like the spider ship picked up itself something alien to both the crew and the ship itself, and you start creating these story seeds, and that could even be independent of the mission the crew goes on, right? So you have this exploration externally, exploring into the vast unknown galaxy, and then you also have the internal exploration of it just gives you great energy for creating NPCs, factions that may want the ship, factions that are in allies to it, maybe even evidence on other planets or home worlds or habitats that have a relation to the old crew. Maybe the PCs come across individuals like themselves, other alien species, and they may want to know why they're crew members of this spaceship that maybe is an enemy, or um, didn't warn the rest of the galaxy about this impending doom, and this ship still exists, and it just reminds people of um, past failures or something. And so all these things are going through my mind with the Starship creation, and we haven't even gotten into creating, myself and 3 other player characters haven't even created our own characters yet.
That's what I wished I could make with this, because you can if you have a creator, he gets his all his synapse firing all the time, and that's what I like, making all these random charts and making flavorful stuff you can build in. That's why I don't just make something like a core which fires all his weapons, or defense against enemies or something. I just try to build in flavor with everything.
I'm glad you took the position of, like you said, you could very easily, just with wording, you could make things very specific, and by doing that, you start creating these little boxes, whether you know it or not. Not you, I'm saying by doing that, by labeling something in a specific manner. When we're trying to be creative, we tend to focus on the box instead of what's on the outside of it. Whereas if you make it general, you can reflavor it to whatever you want. Like you were saying, with the with the core, like the core is like these living, like you said, it was like living fish. Maybe we change it to like spiders or something, and our minds go, instead of saying that doesn't make sense, instead our minds, if our creative intellect goes, I wonder why it's there. Like I like that part of it. Like it's very proactive. Instead of being negative, it's like a positive feedback. Like, oh man. And I can imagine sitting at a table trying to come up with the story of the mystery in many ways, linking together the disparate parts of the Starship creation, and then saying, man, this would be really cool to have this like black ship that looks like a spider landing through the atmosphere, coming through dark clouds or something, and landing on an alien world. And yeah, I'm already psyched.
Oh yeah. That's the problem with building a spaceship in a system. You always want to use that.
Hey, as a creative, man, that's the whole point, right? Like I can imagine you, when you're creating like the different classes of ship, and not class, but I'm sorry, yes, like the Cerberus and the Athena and stuff. Like I'm sure you were thinking like wow, like what kind of stories you could tell, or if of course we want to be players in our own worlds too. So using them in the world, like a ship that has like vast sensors and collecting data, maybe even buying and selling and trading that same data,
why not,
those kind of things. Or
maybe you can substitute information for trading goods. Maybe there are people who would pay a lot for a couple of information.
And having this, you've created a manner of improving the ship and going far beyond the simple matter of like using tools or something, or finding ore, like I said, or plates or something to repair. When a ship that grows because of true stories is really bizarre, but in many ways that could be like gathering information that might be lost to a civilization, or finding a heavily populated world where everyone is basically like it's all built on lies, and the players have to discover the truth about its history, and finding that truth actually helps them out because the ship starts to improve and finds the truth everywhere it goes. And by improving itself, it actually starts weaving together the ancient history of this, intergalactic society or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there, which I really like.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, thank you very much for sharing this. I know you have a ton of information. You've done not just the English version, but you've actually had to translate this from German to even do it in the first place, which is just to me, that just is amazing. Anyway, I don't think you have very much to worry about the wording, because I do understand when language is translated, the contextual part of it can be lost a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty hard sometimes to translate something from one language into another, because sometimes the sentences suddenly don't make sense anymore. So you have to basically write the whole paragraph new, or something. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm sure you've translated and then had to go back, like you said, to get the syntax, if I'm saying that correctly, in order, so that it can be understandable, because just language in general sometimes has things in various orders that don't make sense when you translate them exactly.
Do you speak another language?
No, I barely speak the one I already have. But honestly, I've been exposed to Spanish and quite a bit of Japanese, but it's not intuitive. I wish it was. I probably can read it better than I could speak it.
Yeah, speaking is much harder than reading and writing. That's what I'm trying to practice here with you. Because it's much harder to improvise these things. Aside from when you write it, you could basically look upwards and stuff. Just take a bit more time, and when you speak, you can't have this backup plan, basically.
I agree. And in many ways, like you can tell from me doing like the daily live broadcasts, like I really go off the cuff. I love having more information poured into me, just come up with different ideas. But sitting down and writing, and what some people call Google foo, it's like doing research and then doing some more research, and then you go down these like different pathways of thoughts and go, oh wow, this is great, and this is great. It's like getting on Wikipedia and just getting yourself lost into all the other hyperlinks that take you somewhere else. And I love doing that. And as opposed to it being in my head and being chaos, like yourself, when we write it down, it just becomes this long list of ideas and options, which I love. Randomized tables. I may not roll on the randomized tables, but the tables to me always spark something. Even if I roll something random, I'm like, oh wow, I like that idea, and then I'll take that and just run with it. So
yeah, if you like these, you can look up the character creation styles, which we basically use my random generator for, but it's all tables which are in the document at page 13 to 16. And I basically made the styles. I think I made 20 different styles. That way we got the biological one. But you can also have ancient, you can have metallic, you can have multi-dimensional, you can have whatever. And all of the different options, how to move things inside the ship, how to move things outside the ship, I have everything is a random table for that. I just put it in the generator.
Right. So because we didn't even touch on player character creation, as far as what does it mean to be an Omega drone and the context in this world, so that because the first impression someone might get, even if they listen to or see this video, is that you're playing a human being in a starship, which that doesn't necessarily mean that's true. You're you've awakened, but you might be from some weird alien species, and each other player character is like no one recognizes themselves in anyone else, and you're on a ship that none of the player characters may have been a part of in terms of their species or their background, or their culture at all. And so even that can add even further, like, dynamic ideas of where all the player characters are trying to find their own maybe world they came from. Or it's possible that like transhumanism, or transhumanistic ideas today, the player characters may not even resemble the people they've come from, but they themselves are artificial beings. Artificial meaning that they could be biological, but they may not have any relationship to the genetics of the people they came from.
Yeah.
They may be.
There are quite a lot of concepts you can do with that. What I personally like to do with Astrositas when the characters first wake up is showing them a couple of failed attempts to make them. So they are basically corpses lying around with half-formed versions of themselves, or maybe there's a couple of insane ones of which look exactly like them, and yeah, things like that.
Yeah, I really like that, and there may be even clues as to why they were failures, or maybe they are the sentient, living success, but even that success might have been a mistake of some sort, or a fluke, or just something like random. Like, yeah, they're alive, but they shouldn't look the way they do. There may be, like, maybe the process wasn't finished, and so the player character is alive, but they haven't. But by the design standards, maybe they haven't even completed their own evolution. Which might be kind of strange. In the chat, finally made it. Yeah. We've gone through quite a lot there, dude. Fat Ninja D. To rewind back, but we've basically been went through the process of creating a starship in the Cypher system using Astrositas, and it's very, I think, it's very robust. I'm a little taken aback by the fact that they haven't done this already, which is good because that means you get to do it. So,
and no offense, but I hope I did it better than they could. But
well, they've got, I'm sure Monty Cook's got a ton of other things on his plate. This probably wasn't one of them.
They made a lot of new projects and stuff. They already brought out 2 Numenera books, and yeah, they got a lot of stuff to do.
Right. I mean, even they opened up the the Pandora's box when they released Numenera, because then maybe they weren't expecting to have to create other books to go with Numenera that people wanted because they wanted to play Numenera but didn't have enough information to help them. So then they had to make these background books for Numenera, and it's possible they may not have wanted to do that, but the demand for it.
I think they wanted to do that all along. Also, the Cypher System core rulebook is basically just for those people who like the system that much that they want to use it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I think, what's the other one? The Strange.
Yeah, the Strange. And you also have a couple of new ones. You have one where you play superheroes in the 80s, which is based around masks, and you have one in the far past with dinos, and you have one with where you play gods. There are quite a few already.
Right. So very versatile system. I do understand it can be a little simple, but I think you've done a pretty good job in expanding on that. I mean, hell, the Numenera book is itself a tome, even though the basic rules or core of the rules are very simple. They've been able to do that, and I think with your system, you've been able to really extrapolate out plenty of options.
The thing is that I try to not make too many just mechanical options. So not just you get +1 here, +1 there. I try to make the rules interact with the world. So I'm giving new options for interacting with the world and things like that. Not just having a core which increases all your weapons damage and gives you new weapons and whatever. That's super boring in my opinion. But having something which maybe weaves the fabrics of time and has different effects on that, that's more interesting. And I didn't even include time travel to do that.
Yeah. Also all with all the options, I like you were saying, I love the fact that sure you could just create like better damage or greater accuracy, but you've also attached to it uh, to just enough to spark something else. Like let's go back to the Hermes option, right? You could have very easily just said, okay, it's faster, and been done with it. Like it just gets the Starship is just faster, and it can go places, pop from one place to another faster than anything else. But the concept of Hermes with the helix
Messenger.
of that staff of Hermes is an integral part of that mythology, and then having that in a ship where it has like healing bays and you're starting to think about it, it's like, oh, it makes this other, you're thinking of these other stories, as opposed to a bonus to hit, a bonus to move, a bonus for damage, a bonus for armor,
Yeah.
which it's in there. But I love the fact that you've incorporated these places. For me, if I'm game mastering, I need fuel, right? I need some creative fuel, and if the players are stuck, I can always pull at those little strings and create something on the fly. Um, make something that's what do you call it? Like make it personal to the player characters. So instead of them just going to a random planet, which is absolutely perfectly fine, every once in a while I can throw something in that's personal to them, either specifically to their characters or to the Starship. You know, they find a like we
Suddenly a room opens with which is completely different than everything else they have seen so far. Maybe they are in your spider biological ship, and suddenly a clean white apple-like room opens up, and what the fuck is happening now?
I like that. I still love the fact that there's the players are flying around in a ship and they don't know everything in it. And I'm sure you're going to get a couple of players that are like that are hyper focused on opening every door and finding out every secret, but still, I think for the majority, I think you're going to really find that a lot of players are going to enjoy not knowing everything. Um, uh,
Interestingly enough, I made it every time that I made ships in Astrositas in a way that the players could theoretically open all the doors. They never did. I'm not sure why. Maybe I made it not clear enough that they could, but they never did. They never did go into the spaces which are opened up later. I had one or two situations where NPCs did it. For example, in one ship, they had something like an insect-like NPC as an ally, and he explored the ship all the time. And he basically triggered random events all the time where something attacked from inside the ship or something malfunctions or whatever. And he was basically my excuse to trigger all these events.
and I like how you suggest starting. An excellent way to open up an adventure is to have the players wake up and then essentially explore the ship, clear the ship out, get it started. You know, this derelict craft like tumbling through space, or maybe it's been covered over by years or even centuries of growth or something on an alien planet or whatnot, and you know you only have a few lights. There's dust everywhere. Maybe the ship is like tilted to the side, and they're like
Oh
crawling.
man, I wish I could show you my Roll20 maps. I'm trying it with Firefox now. because the other thing still it didn't open.
All right. Wow.
I'm not sure. Maybe they don't have the right plugins with Chrome. Not sure.
Okay.
Just quickly want to show that because I put quite a lot of work in the last ship I made for my campaign. Maybe I can share that. Yeah, that opens. Just wait a couple more seconds.
Okay.
You still got these weird noises in the background. Not sure if the audience also hears that.
I don't know.
Fat Ninja asked if you're talking about a new RPG system. It's something I built, Fat Ninja. It's a supplement for the Cypher system, which I call Astrositas, where you can build spaceship-like characters with the same. That's the ship I made in Roll20.
Oh,
that's
cool.
that's a meteorite corvette that breathes suns. And the ship, I made all these walls. That's not something pre-built. I made all the little parts here. All of them I built together. I made the floors. I made all these little items in there. That's the NPCs running around. That's all the stuff I made. And the interesting part is I don't make it once, I made it twice, because the ship is has a bit of a weird gravity. The ship is basically like you have the middle part is basically mirrored on the bottom part. Also the upper part is mirrored on the bottom part. So when you want to go to the specific part of the ship, you walk through the floor, and then the gravity shifts so that the bottom side is also the floor.
I like that. And
that's how you move around to the unexplored parts of the ship, which are currently filled by lava. As you can see here.
Wow. So they would have to figure out kind of how to get through, or what the lava's purpose is, because it might be integral to the ship.
Yeah, that's how these things work. And I also made another ship. That's the Blue Infinity. That's a ship which looks like a beach. And all the slots are floating islands inside the ship.
That's wild.
These are all slots inside the ship, which all have specific functions. And the crew of the ship so far are some intelligent dolphins.
Makes sense.
What else? That's the first ship I built inside here, which I used. Oh no, that's not that. That's not that one. Do I still have it? I don't think I still have it. I made one huge map for space combat, which is filled with all kinds of assets, which I can use whenever I want. So I just have giant planets and nebulas and suns, and there's a couple of spaceships in the back.
Wow.
I can just use them all the time. And I made a lot of random. I have one tab with just NPCs, which I can put in every time I need them. That's all just tokens I can use. Yeah, I put a lot of work in this shit.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's awesome. So, yeah, guys, this I've got to see how this comes to fruition. I'm glad I'm on the I'm an outsider on the bottom floor, able to take a look. It's just amazing stuff. I think it's just amazing, and I can't stop my brain from thinking of how, like, we've just created one Starship and use that for the player characters. I can't imagine what would happen when the players go find another ship with, you know, NPCs and whatnot, and it is just as crazy and bizarre boarding this other ship as their own.
I've actually not normally it doesn't happen. I thought about maybe making it when one of the ships is destroyed, or maybe they don't want to use it anymore, or whatever, it's captured, that you can get another. But I think having more than one ship at the same time could get quite confusing. And yeah, there's always this, I'm on that ship in that room, and you're on that ship in that room, and it could get complicated quite fast. It's like playing a Star Trek game, and you have like 3 or 4 different Star Trek ships with the same time, and that's maybe not the best idea. I think the best thing would be focusing on one ship and maybe looting other ships. You can put out modules from other ship and place them inside your ship, or steal their weapons and stuff like that. So you can still try to take over the unique aspects of other ships.
So and of course the players are, I mean, they're the ones the spotlight should really be on. They're the adventurers. They're the ones who are the movers and shakers in this galaxy. They're the ones that the story can focus around, even if they are at the so-called bottom rung of society. We want to focus on their story. So I can see that. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, absolutely. So I'm going quite a bit late.
Oh yeah, sorry.
As always. No, it's the problem is mine, because this is like my coffee in the morning. I could go on for another 3 or 4 hours on any subject for any reason at all. My limitation is just time. that's it. Usually it's two things that compete against each other for most of us creatives. It's either not having any ideas and you desperately want them, or having too many ideas and you can't use any of them.
Yeah, that's my big problem. That's why I invested so much time in this specific idea, so I can use it. I have like maybe a dozen more ideas I desperately want to use, but I still not even close to them being able to. So yeah.
And I know you have a robust system for creating planetary systems and cultures.
I'm already trying to build that. It's not built yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's in your head. You just have to
write it down. Yeah.
Just get it organized just right, and then I'm sure you're just like, oh, once you break that code, I think eventually it'll just fall into place. I'm sure you've got a ton of ideas, and you're just waiting for the right moment, and of course, time. That's a lot to do with that too. But yeah, wow. So, by the way, sir, thank you very much. I'm going to let you sign out first. Let me just tell everybody, yes, I'm DBJ. All the information you need to know is going to be in the comments. For me, working with Critical Hit Publishing, and ask you to be part of the Discord, which I think I should start pushing that a little bit more. I might try to push people to put questions in a Discord and then use them as future topics. I'm not sure yet.
You're not that active yourself on Discord?
No, I'm not. And every time I get ready to get active, I'm like, oh yeah, and I've got to do this other thing. So this will push me to be more active in the Discord, and people can communicate with me directly, because it's really hard to do that in like YouTube comments and things like that. That kind of whatever. And then I could push people to the Facebook group, but I'm the active one of the 3 of us in Critical Hit, so they might be like, thanks for the question, but you might want to refer this to the guy who actually asked about it. So yeah, we'll do something about that too, and make it far more interactive beyond just the videos. I've got to promise myself.
By the way, if you want to ask anything about Astrositas or anything we talked about today, I'm usually in the Discord. Currently, I'm not because I ended it to make streaming a bit more seamlessly, but I'm usually in there. So if you have any questions, you can ask me, you can PM me, so DM me. So
Yep.
just do it. I am always eager for questions, for answers, for stuff to improve. Yeah, that's my thing. That's my baby here. So
Yeah, I love it. I know you're passionate about it, and oh man, the amount of work you've done. But I think we run along the same lines though, just as far as coming to similar conclusions from different angles, and I love it. I love it. So
yeah, it's also like this process of having something to work with and then bouncing ideas off each other. That's how we made the spider-like ship at the end, and that's pretty awesome. Taking random elements and make something complete out of it.
yeah, I love it. So guys, Scott Post says this system is really awesome and in depth. Yeah, it's he hasn't revealed. We've touched the surface. We haven't.
We touched the surface. If we want to finish the ship, we would need maybe 1 or 2 hours more. So yeah.
Yeah. Hey man, around the table with some pizza and some beer. Oh my God, we go on for many hours just doing that. Oh, but, yeah.
I didn't even describe all the options because you simply made it so you picked one and then we did go with it. I couldn't even describe all the options. So yeah. There's still lots more to see.
Yeah, it's great, and I just love the fact that all the options, all the details, just keep going, keep hitting back to stories. Hey, I've got this bonus, and then here's a story element. I've got this, great mechanical thing, gamified aspect, and I've got this story aspect, and layering those two is a weird tightrope to walk. But I think you've really done a great job of being able to do that. So guys, I gotta go. It's getting late. I've got like 15 minutes before I gotta leave, but I've got all my stuff ready. So everybody have a very good day, and we are out.